Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another week of the show. Grand Valley at 6-0 and doing a great job this year, fresh off a 35-23 win over Ferris State at home. And tonight we're going to be talking with assistant coach Mike Hatcher. Also, player Nate Cole will stop by. Of course, we'll look back over that game against Ferris State, the big win. We'll break that down with head coach Matt Mitchell. And preview homecoming this weekend. At home, of course, as Lakers going to bring in a non-conference opponent here. Truman State will be the team, and a very good team out of the Great Lakes Valley Conference. So we'll talk about Ferris, preview the game coming up, chat with head coach, or assistant coach rather, Mike Hatcher, and player Nate Cole. That's all straight ahead as the GVSU Football Weekly Report gets started right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Now we're back inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Great to have you along for another edition of the GVSU Football Weekly Report. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. As Grand Valley now 6-0, thanks to a 35-23 victory over Ferris State, as we bring in head coach Matt Mitchell. And Mitch, you get the record to 6-0, undefeated. Only two teams within the region right now undefeated. You're one of them. Get a big win over your rival, and you do it at home, and I'm sure that had to feel great.
Yeah, it was a great night. Obviously, first you got to talk about the game day atmosphere that we had. We set the single game record at Grand Valley with 16,889, so it was awesome. Deal with two teams that are very close to each other and also rivals from an institutional and athletic department standpoint. And I thought we had great support from season ticket holders and fans and students, and they traveled well too. So when we took the field, it was a very electric atmosphere. And, I think that helped. I think we've changed some things up on our game day to get off to some fast starts, and we certainly have gotten off to fast starts the entire season, and we got off to a fast start in this Ferris game. And, got a little bit tight there in the second half, but they're a quality football team. But get to win over them, it was big. It was big for the conference race. It was big for getting that Anchor Bone Trophy back for our senior class, and, just the overall trying to push us from 5-0 to 6-0 and stay relevant within the league chase and also stay relevant when it comes to some of the regional rankings.
Talking about a fast start, I don't know how many people know this one, but Sports Information Director Tim Knott digging up these nuggets for us. And Lakers outscored their first 5 opponents this year, 75-0 in the first quarter. But get this, Grand Valley, the only team in college football right now not to yield a touchdown in the first half of a game. That's incredible through 6 weeks.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to a lot of factors. I mean, one of the factors has to do with, we got a lot of returning starters on the defensive side of the ball, so we have experience on that side of the ball. Our coaching staff doing a great job with game planning, putting our players in some very, very favorable positions from a schematic standpoint, and our guys go on executing it. And then, I think a lot of that has to do with some field position too. We've done a really good job with special teams, and we had a little bit of a hiccup with our kickoff coverage against Northern Michigan. But other than that, we've had great kickoff coverage, had good kickoff coverage the other day. So, we talk about all the times the two coverage units, which would be kickoff and punt, are like the first snaps of defense. And by gaining a lot of field position and forcing teams to really drive the ball, I think that's critical. So yeah, it's been great. Our defense is one of the strengths of our team, and they've allowed us to get off to some really good starts and have some leads heading into halftime. And I didn't know that either. That's pretty amazing, to be honest with you, that we haven't done that. I did know the other fun stat. We're one of the few teams. I think we're the only team in Division II that has not yielded a rushing touchdown on the defensive side of the ball. Nobody's ran the ball across the goal line through 6 games. So. Again, speaks to some of the strength of our guys up front and having great red zone plan. Obviously, our red zone defense was really critical in the game against Ferris State.
Grand Valley gets the win 35-23 at 6-0, this win over Ferris State. Mitch, let's go back last week and revisit the keys a little bit, you and I discussing at the time. Turnovers, you mentioned, field position. Wanted to get hits on their quarterback, Reggie Bell. You wanted to try to prevent some hits on Bart Williams, your quarterback. How did you feel in each of those categories you did?
Well, overall, we won the turnover battle. We forced some turnovers on Ferris State. We got a couple fumbles. Obviously, we had some interceptions. The one interception led to a score was huge. It's really tough to score on defense. We've been able to do that twice this year, and both of those have been at home. So scoring on defense is huge. So we won the turnover battle. We could have been more convincing in the turnover battle. We threw 3 picks, actually threw 3 picks to the same kid. There's one kid from Ferris that had 3 picks. So, that's not just a Bart Williams issue. I think that's an entire offense issue on those turnovers. So I'm not sure we're as clean as we needed to be on the turnover thing. When it came to dealing with the hits on the quarterback, I was extremely impressed with Reggie Bell. Anybody who was at the game or watched the thing, on ESPN3, I think you saw the playmaking ability of him that we had referenced heading into the game. And he got some, he made some plays. He made some plays both in the pass game and run around scrambling. He was very difficult to bring down. But at the same time, I think if you're at the game, we did hit him a lot. We got a lot of contact on him, both in the run game and also the pass game. We were able to get him down, and he was under duress a lot, especially the first half. He was under a lot of duress, and so credit to him. He did make some plays under duress, but and really, I thought for the most part, we protected our quarterback pretty well. A little bit of a stint in the third quarter, we gave up a couple sacks, but Bart really wasn't on the ground, and we protected him better than even maybe last year's contest with similar defensive front. So, and then the whole field position thing. Like I said, we won the special teams matchup. I was concerned about that given some of the skill, especially their punter Trevor Birmingham. But I thought Matt Williams, our punt returner, it's one of those deals. You're not going to look at eye-popping punt return statistics, but he caught every punt and he didn't let the ball hit the turf and roll. And we talk about that all the time in our program. That usually when a punt actually hits the turf, you're going to gain an additional 10 to 15 yards lose an additional 10 to 15 yards of field position. So fielding punts is a very underrated skill, and I thought Matt kind of helped us out with that. So, those things, the turnover battle, the hits on the quarterback, I think the red zone defense was great. We were down in the red zone twice. We got 2 touchdowns out of that. The key to the game was they got down in the red zone, I think 5 times, and we gave up 2 field goals and a touchdown, and held up scoreless on a couple of their missed field goal attempts, got off the field on 4th down. I mean, that was kind of the tail of the game, was the red zone efficiency differential between the 2 squads. So it just goes to show you, again, I bang this drum a lot, and especially on this show with you, Steve, but time of possession, irrelevant. Yardage is really irrelevant. A lot of these other things that we hang our hats on are more critical, and that's the reason we won the football game.
Yeah, well, of course, Marty Carter plays a big role almost every game you play. He seemed to have an even bigger role in this one. Runs for 127 yards, throws a touchdown, runs one in. He was great. And Bart, even though statistically, not one of his best games, boy, on the drive late when you needed throws, he completes the 3rd and 9 to Brandon Bean. He throws a big one, a pass or 2 later to Erston Smith, and then, of course, the touchdown goes to Nick Dotson. He was huge when he needed to be. Those 2 guys really led the way.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, talking about Bart, it was a little bit of a rough third quarter. I think it was a rough third quarter because we weren't able to run the ball as much as, we probably had wanted. They changed some things up, and we put him in some harder positions, especially on some 2nd and long, 3rd and longs. But credit to him, as an athlete, you could have felt a lot of frustration from the standpoint of, man, if we just could put something together here in this third, we could, really put the margin of victory to possession and help our defense out. And I think all the guys are frustrated, but I think it's a sign for Bart's maturity and things that he was able to, in a critical situation, play his best football, and that was the case. We had the 3rd down. We were up against it right there. Everything is going completely in Ferris's direction at that point in time. We're clinging to a 5-point lead. Definitely the prospect of punting the ball back to him at that point in time, and he just puts an absolute dime on Bean, which that play really lifted the whole sideline. It lifted the entire team. Came back. They've been really stuffing the box. We couldn't get Marty going, so we hit the slant, as you mentioned, to Erston, and then he had a little bit of somebody in his face, and really dialed up a great throw, right on the corner of the end zone, to Nick Dotson. So that was a critical drive. Marty was good. There was one drive, our 3rd scoring drive in the first half, that was almost 100% Marty Carter. Based on a formation and a coverage that we were getting, we were able to get Martavius one-on-one with one of their safeties, and that safety was struggling to tackle Marty in open space. And we just kind of kept feeding it to Marty in that drive, and he punched in the end zone. And then I thought In these big games, you always have special plays. You have trick plays that you practice up. You have fakes. You have those type of things ready to go in contests. And so we had a series of trick plays. And, Marty's he's a unique bird when it comes to throwing the football. He's a lefty. So it has to be on the proper hash. And it happened to work out that the ball was on the left hash for that. And he dropped back and just kind of calm, cool, and collected, lofted it up to Erston Smith. And apropos, given the fact that in the playoff game he threw one to Bart Williams and almost scored, and he also threw one in the Colorado State Pueblo game. So he's
Kaiser,
he's coming to a point where we start getting in the red zone. We have a lot of trust that Marty's going to get it done. And it's one of those deals, like, we run him in practice. We don't make that big a deal of it, and he just kind of whims out there and throws it there. And like, all right, there we go. That one's in. So it's fun, to see those plays executed, and we need those plays. You have to keep people off balance with those type of plays. And I thought at that point in time, up 7-0 kind of drive, and I thought it was an excellent time to make that particular play call.
Yeah, absolutely. He set himself, didn't rush it. Nice spiral. It was contested. I mean, Erston had to, try to get a little separation. How about defensively in this? Boy, Dylan Carroll was active. Talley, Colin Schlosser, McKissick had some good breakups. Talk about your defense and what you take away from that.
Yeah, I think it starts up front with our D-line and linebackers. I thought our defensive staff did a great job. Heading into the game, we talked all week as a staff that when you have a player like Reggie Bell, sometimes your tendency is to kind of like, sit back, and we weren't going to do that. That's no way to, combat or defend that type of player. Like, we were going to come after him. And we knew, we said, he's probably going to make a couple plays, but we're going to keep coming after him. So we showed so many different fronts and so many different pressures, and we moved from a 4-down front to a 3-down front and just kept them off balance. I thought we did a really good job of that. And when you have a lot of pieces to the puzzle, Steve, that allows you to game planning to do that. We have a lot of trust in all of our defensive linemen. I think a big key to our season so far is the fact that we've been able to rotate in defensive linemen. Coach Whitlow's down on the field, and he does a really good job of some substitutions at the defensive line, and we're playing 7-8 guys, and even James McBride, one of our redshirt freshmen, got in at some 3 technique. We've committed to playing a lot of different people, and that helps us when you have to defend that many snaps. We're out there for almost 90 snaps, and so that rotation of the defensive line, the intelligence and kind of savvy of the Schlosser, Moran, Talley crew allows you to do some different things there, and then. I have to give one specific kid a lot of credit, Dante Carey, our senior. Between special teams and defense, he played 111 snaps.
Wow.
Just an incredible effort and performance. And that part of that was the fact that Garrett Pune was out. So we started Jalen Harden at one safety, and we started Dante the other. Dante didn't come off the field the entire game, and he also played on a lot of special teams. And it was just really, when you had a senior that's been in our program, a senior from West Michigan, Ottawa Hills, he stepped up really big, and along with him, Grant Postma too. With Garrett being out, Grant played some snaps from Zeeland West and played on a lot of special teams and did a lot of things too. So that's that. All 3 levels of our defense, I thought, and we had a lot of defense in. We knew we had a lot of defense in, a lot of meetings, a lot of walkthroughs, a lot of extra practice time. I thought those guys did a really good job of executing our defense, and I wish we could have got them off the field a little bit more in the third quarter. They were out there a lot in the second half, and so. That's obviously falls in the offense. We got a little bit of our job hoping to try to protect some of the health and safety of our defense. But we started losing a couple guys in the second half, and a lot of guys kind of stepped in and were able to keep them out of the end zone, which was really critical.
Absolutely. Well, great to hear about those guys behind the scenes and the job they did. 35-23, Grand Valley Downs Ferris State, as the Bulldogs now with 2 losses this year already. Lakers at 6-0. When we come back, Coach, want to get your thoughts here briefly on the guy we'll talk to next, the assistant coach, your running back coach, Mike Hatcher.
Yeah, Mike is coming back, a first-year coach. Fortunate enough, Mike played for us, recruited him. He's from the east side of the state, played corner for us, and then he got done. He wanted to get into coaching, so went out to one of the favorite spots. A lot of us have some ties to Wartburg College, who's out there at Wartburg College, and then brought him in, and he came in here last spring, has taken over for Matt Yochis, who's down in Miami, Ohio. So good to have an alum, good to have a Grand Valley football alum, a person that knows the culture, and a person from the state of Michigan from some recruiting ties to come back into our program.
All right, we're going to talk with Mike coming up after the break. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell on the Grand Valley Sports Network. We'll be right back.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
That was Marty Carter with that toss. The touchdown throw on the halfback option there. Great throw. Catch by Hurston Smith as the Lakers beat Ferris State this past Saturday, 35-23. Record crowd. And by the way, with the win, Grand Valley now moves into the #1 spot all time in win percentage. They are just a few points ahead of Michigan and Notre Dame right now. So the Lakers #1 in college football in win percentage. Welcome in assistant coach, the running backs coach, Mike Hatcher, with us now. Mike, great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're a guy who, of course, is a former Laker, back here now as a coach. What's that like for you?
It's a little bit different starting out, but I think that I've adjusted well. I was fortunate enough to play here and fortunate enough to coach here, so really happy to be back. Such a great program and trying to do my best.
So as a player, I'm sure you were watching film, breaking that down to some degree, but as a coach, a lot more of that. What other changes and differences are you noticing as a coach?
Well, you just mentioned probably the biggest change is that you're looking at it from more the mental side than the physical side. So you try to go in and you try to find every little nuance and every little tip that you can, and you try to make it work for your team. And I think the biggest thing for me is just I like helping people, and that's the funnest part. So, like I said before, I'm happy to be here.
So as for you as a former DB, now as your running backs coach, what is the toughest thing to teach a running back for you? What is, it's like, oh, if I could only get them to understand what?
Well, I think that as a player in general, you just try to understand the moment that you're in, and you try to enjoy playing football. And I think that the biggest thing for me to try to teach them is to have fun. I always want them to have fun, and that's always going to be the biggest thing for me. Technique things, I can learn that, and they can learn that, and I can teach that. So having fun, though, it's always challenging when you're at a program that's been so successful and that's got so many wins under your belt. You kind of forget to have fun, and that's what I try to remind them to do.
Former Laker assistant Matt Yochis, who used to coach running backs a little bit as well, I remember him saying that what he really wanted out of his backs was courage. He looked for that and really wanted to see what guys, I don't know, were willing to go through, make the contact, make the block, whatever. Do you notice that as well?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that I like to look for in my tailbacks is confidence. Confidence is a big one just because for me, I always believe that if you go out on the field and you believe that you can do something, you'll eventually get it. You'll eventually do it. And courage kind of comes with that. It kind of falls along the same lines. But I think that Marty, Terrell, and all the other guys, they do a good job of going in and they run hard, they finish runs, and that's what I'm looking from them.
Talking with assistant coach, the running backs coach Mike Hatcher with us here in the Grand Valley State Sports Football Weekly Report. As you know, your group, you guys within a spread attack, of course, a lot of passing that's going on, and pass protection a big part of it.
Yeah.
How complicated is that for the running backs when you prepare? I know it differs by opponent, but how much is on the plate of those guys in pass protection alone?
Well, as far as pass protection goes, it's just like anything else. You try to stick true to the process, and you try to learn it just as well as you try to learn the run game. We don't ask them to do a ton. I think that we ask them to do enough. Coach Morrison does a great job up front getting those guys together, so it's not a ton that we got to learn. I'm fortunate for that, but they do a really good job. Terrell and Marty, they've been really exceptional this year protecting the quarterback, and I'm proud of both of them.
Well, both guys very, very skilled. How have you seen individually them improve? What areas have they really started to come improve on?
Well, I think Terrell, his biggest thing as improving that he improved on this year was just trying to finish runs a little bit more on a consistent basis and trying to make some guys miss at the same time. And I think he's done a great job of doing both of those. I think he's been pretty explosive for us as well. Marty, we just try to focus on a little thing. Obviously, he's an exceptional athlete, and he's a dynamic football player. I just try to remind him of the little things. All the rest of it, I let him take care of it, and I let him go be a football player.
Yeah. ball protection, right? For
Yeah,
everybody.
exactly.
That's one of those little things.
Exactly.
All right, now, a lot of fans, we see Marty Carter. We see Terrell Dorsey. Those guys are great. But there are other players who are maybe younger and starting to emerge a little bit too. Christian Lumpkin, a name into that mix. You've got some other backs who have seen a little bit of time so far.
Yeah.
Tell us about those guys a little.
Yeah, Christian, he's an exceptional athlete as well. Really fast kid. Can make a lot of guys miss, and he can do a lot of things. He's coming along pretty well. We actually use him a lot in special teams, and he does a really good job for us there. Bryce Young Walls, he's going to be a good back for us in the future. Really good kid, takes coaching a lot. He's a competitor. He's fun to work with. Caleb Richards, he's a really good kid as well. Really smart kid. Anything that I give to Caleb, I can put my full trust in him that he's going to go out there and try to get it done to his best of his ability. He's a pretty good athlete himself. So very bright future for us in the backfield. We're really excited for all three of those guys.
Yeah, well, they've flashed, no doubt about it. Mike, before we let you go, you got your first taste of the rivalry with Ferris from a coaching perspective. Yep. You're on the sideline watching it. What is that like? What did you take away from Saturday?
It was really exciting for me. I'm not saying it was any different from any other game as far as emotion, but it was
extra sweet?
Yeah, it was extra sweet to especially get the anchor bone back. And I was just talking to one of my guys, Mike Rattay. He was just kind of telling me that he was happy that we got it back.
That's right.
And being out there in the moment, it was really sweet.
It was. Great victory there for the Lakers over Ferris State on Saturday. That's Mike Hatchett, running backs coach for the Lakers. Great having you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we're going to break down Grand Valley's homecoming opponent, Truman State, a team that's from the region, not the conference, of course, but we'll be talking about Truman State when we come back. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Back inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Great to have you along. So brought to you in part by Earhart Construction, the official construction company of the Grand Valley Sports Network. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones, Grand Valley. Crazy play there, Coach. Matt Mitchell back with us. And boy, you get Talley knocking the ball into the air. Carroll, he scored on a fumble return last year. He's got, eyes of getting to the end zone again with the pick, but it gets knocked out of his hands and then, lo and behold, into the end zone. And I believe, Dunham falls on it.
Yeah, it was a very interesting play. We had David Talley blitzing off the edge, and the quarterback tried to, throw it around him, and he batted it straight up in the air. Dylan Carroll's back there, and he goes to intercept it. What Dylan has got a thumb injury, and what we're starting to do now with our defensive linemen is basically cast their thumbs up. So he's got these two immobile thumbs, and he kind of gets it, and he didn't get it clean, and then fumbles in the end zone. There's a little bit of scramble right there, and then it's just kind of crazy how a corner you would think would be back in coverage a little bit. He comes up out of coverage and just kind of is there to fall on the football. So for Kalen as a redshirt freshman, we've talked about him in this program, has played pretty well, being thrust in the role with the Trey Walton injury. To score against Ferris State a touchdown on the defensive side of the ball. As a redshirt freshman, you're setting the bar pretty high for yourself for the rest of the career to come up with that type of play.
That's right. He had to really step up, too, because they went right after him.
Oh, they went right after him. They knew where he was.
Yeah.
They went right after him on the first play. They went right at him. And, there were some highs and lows throughout the course of the evening, but they had some good wideouts, and he hung in there for us.
Well, Grand Valley, the win over Ferris State, record crowd last Saturday. Now they're at home this week with homecoming. This is a 4 o'clock start, so we want to point that out because it's a different start time, and it's not a conference opponent. This is a regional opponent, however. Truman State will come to Allendale, and this is a good team, aren't they, Coach? They're 5-1 out of the GVSU.
Yeah, very good team. It's very unique. I had Greg Johnson was out of practice, asked me about a Week 7 non-conference, and 13 years here, I can't think of any time we've had a non-conference game this late in the season, but the set of circumstances that led to the game. Malone was originally in our league, and then they punched out, and so we were able to get this non-conference game, a home and away. We're at Truman State next fall. I got to make that drive down to Missouri, but great job by our administration getting this game scheduled. I mean, it's a great game for several reasons. One, it's an in-region opponent. I think that's really critical. When you start looking at some of the playoff formats and what they've got to do. Second, it's a quality program. They're a school that was in the MIAA, a very strong conference with Northwest Missouri State, Pitt State, things like that. They've moved to the GLVC, and you've saw throughout the course of the years they've continued to get better within that conference. And they're rolling in here 5-1. Their only loss so far is against Midwestern State. Midwestern State is winning the Lone Star Conference. They're undefeated right now. Midwestern State was the number 1 seed in our region last year, so a good football team that they beat at home. And since then, they've gone on a good run, and they've beat some really good teams. Probably the top other 2 teams in that conference, Southwest Baptist, they defeated last week, and previous to that, University of Indianapolis, who's won that league and represented that league in the playoffs. They beat them too. So it's going to be a good opponent. I think we had a little bit of a taste of them in 2013, but that's a long time ago. So we got on the tape, and this isn't an opponent that anyone in our building is looking over just based on the approach that we have at Grand Valley State in a week-to-week basis. But the same thing, you take a look at the record, and I think our kids are smart enough to understand the implications of this contest.
That's right. Grand Valley taking on Truman State for homecoming this year. 4 o'clock the kick time at Lubbers Stadium, and a lot of youth for them offensively, kind of led by a redshirt freshman here. Redshirt freshman quarterback Jaden Barr, the guy under center, and true freshman Jordan Salima. He's going to be an action back there running the football. Yeah,
I don't know how in recruiting, I'd have to ask Coach Nesbitt when he gets up here, how'd you get the guy? But they've got a true freshman running back that's a good player. He does a lot of things for him offensively. He's also a dangerous kick returner and has done some things on special teams for him too. So they like to run the ball. That's what they hold their hat on. A lot of it are traditional tailback runs, but they also incorporate some quarterback runs. And when you look at the statistics, they like to run the ball and play good defense. So their offense is – it's an offense that's going to run a lot of different personnel groups, so it's going to put a little pressure on us. We've had a couple weeks here in a row where we had just pretty much the same personnel group out there. So they're going to use a lot of different tight ends, substitute people in. You're going to see, hockey shift type changes of individuals coming in and out of their sideline. That's going to be adjustment for guys defensively, and they're going to try to run the ball. And their offense has made a huge leap in points per game from 2015 to 2016. I think it has to do with a freshman tailback and a redshirt freshman quarterback that are just more athletic and able to make some plays. So that's what you're going to see in the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, they're leading their league in rush defense, and they're also, I think in the top 5-6 NCAA-wise in terms of rush defense. I think they're only giving up like 92, 93 yards per game. And they have a front that when you look on the depth chart, Steve, is not a big front. It's not going to have huge people up front, but it's a smaller athletic front. They're going to do a lot of things pre-snap and post-snap to try to create some confusion with their defensive line. And they've had success in 2016 doing that with a lot of pre-snap and post-snap movements. If there's one thing that they're a little deficient at over on their team is their pass defense. Within the GLVC, they're ranked last, 9th in terms of their pass defense, and that's obviously something that we've taken a look at on tape, and how can we potentially work that to our advantage. Part of the reason that may be a challenge, though, is with the protections and an active defensive line. And they're really good on special teams, to mention the third phase. They've blocked 3 punts this year. They're one of the top teams in our conference in return yardage and one of the top teams nationally in kickoff return. A lot of it has to do with that the true freshman tailback, Jordan Salima. He's a really good kick returner, too, and he's created some issues for him, too. So a solid football team, a team that gives great effort, a type of team that's not going to beat themselves. The last time they have fumbled a football was week 2, so they've gone now 4 straight weeks without a fumble. Don't throw a lot of picks. They're not very penalized. It's a very disciplined crew, and they're just going to try to present a tough out. They're not going to let themselves beat themselves. They're going to make you beat them, and it's going to be you have to force to put some drives together. You're going to have to play great, solid run defense. You're going to have to be up to the challenge.
Absolutely. Truman State, the opponent. I remember last year talking about how a lot of substitutions, tight ends, that kind of thing. Didn't Ashland try to do that against you guys?
They
as
did,
well?
and successfully in the first regular season game, they substituted a lot of different people and bounced around a lot of position groups. And we struggle with that. Players a little bit struggle with that, and we got a handle on it in the playoff game.
Yeah,
a lot better in there. But yeah, you got to be locked in as a player, and we have got coaches in the box trying to call that out. But that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to personnel us and put us in some situations where there's some confusion with the Grand Valley defense.
Yeah, Grand Valley against a tough opponent, Truman State, for homecoming this year. A 4 o'clock kick for that. Of course, we'll be on the network with radio coverage beginning at 3. Kickoff is at 4. That's Truman State, the opponent for the Lakers this week. Keys to that game straight ahead as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell rolls on. We're live from the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Show brought to you in part by Kent Equipment, solutions that turn work into play, on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
One of the biggest plays of the game Saturday night, Nick Dotson hauling that in as he led the way for the Lakers with 4 grabs. Grand Valley did have big pass plays. Not a lot of yardage, but big plays. As Nick, 4 catches for 92 yards. That touchdown helped to give you the final margin of victory, 35-23. Back with head coach Matt Mitchell, I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. Time for the Keys to the Game segment, presented by Fox Motors. Only the best. Truman State, we were talking about them in the last segment. Mitch, what are the keys to a victory?
Well, a couple things I think to watch out for. First of all, negative plays, whether it's sacks and tackles for loss. I think it's really critical that our defense finds a way with their running the game to get some TFLs. We've got to try to generate some tackles for loss, and then with a redshirt freshman quarterback, attempt to get back there, and whether he's running the ball and we tackle him for a loss or a sack, those type of plays. And then with their defensive line being a smaller, active defensive line, it's not going to be a matter of them overpowering us at the line of scrimmage with our offensive line. I think it's more of a technical, being great from fundamentals and a technique standpoint, and handling a lot of those movements, both the run game and the pass game. So, I'd say if we can avoid some negative plays and we can enforce some negative plays on them, I think that'll be obviously one of the keys to the game. Third downs are really critical. When you take a look at our team right now, Steve, the first 5 weeks of the season, and again, some of this is within the context of the opponent, but we were on fire offensively converting on third downs. In the last 2 weeks, we haven't been as good. Against Ohio Dominican, I think we converted only 18% of our third downs, and then against Ferris, we converted 30% of our third downs. We have higher standards for our third down conversion percentage with our offense, and that number needs to go up. Our defense has been doing a good job holding their own. We held Ferris to 5 of 15, so got them to 33% on that. But the last 2 weeks, we've lost the third down conversion differential. We've been on the negative side of that. And it's tough to live that way. You're going to have to try to generate a lot more turnovers if you're not getting off the field on third down and you're not staying out there on third down. So that's probably a really big point of emphasis for us heading in this game is cleaning up our third down. And I'm not saying our defense is bad, but they could be a little bit better. I think when we look back at Ferris, the 5 that we gave up, probably 3 of the 5, we could have been off the field if we'd been a little bit more assignment sound in some areas that way. So definitely took a look at that. And then, the turnover thing is, really critical. They're not going to turn the ball over very much. It's almost like if I could make an analogy for fans to somebody that's a league, if you think a Hillsdale type operation, Hillsdale is the pace of play and the way that they run the ball and what they do. It's just not prone to a lot of loose footballs as opposed to an option team or somebody that throws it around. So when you head into these contests, you're not going to sit there defensively, in my opinion, unless things go different than I think they're going to go. You're not going to generate 4, 5, 6 turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. So consequently, if you want to win the turnover battle, it is extremely critical that we have great ball security on the offensive side of the ball and make good decisions at the quarterback position. So that's something heading into the game. Those three things, I think the negative play matchups, the third down conversion differential, and obviously the turnover differential are going to be really, really big when you're facing a team that, maybe as many people are not familiar with coming in from the GVSU.
Now, you mentioned special teams for them was pretty good, too. Anything to key in on special teams?
I think their kickoff return team has an explosive guy back there. Now, since the Northern Michigan debacle, we've been good. We've gotten that shored up on that end, so, definitely the matchup there. And it's been hard to get Matt Williams going as a punt returner just based on the style. I do think this week Matt Williams will have some opportunities for punt returns. Now, we got to get them blocked up for him, but I think based on the style of punter, it's not a rugby kick, it's not a low-line drive. This is more of a traditional punter. I think it lends itself to us having opportunities for Matt Williams to break loose, and that's something that hasn't quite happened yet in 2016. That happened a little bit more in 2015.
All right, up next is player Nate Cole. You're going to talk with him.
Yep, Nate is one of our senior defensive backs from the east side of the state. So, maybe not a person that, from a statistical standpoint has an impact, but is a valuable member of our team. And just going to bring him on and talk a little bit about his experiences with our program.
Sounds good. Nate Cole up next. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. We're live from the Main Street Pub in Allendale on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
We continue live from the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Steve Lloyd-Jones, head coach Matt Mitchell, and special guest right now, Nate Cole.
Nate,
with us.
Oh, sorry to cut you off there, Steve. Nate Cole, senior nickel, corner, safety, long snapper, jack of all trades. How we doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me here.
Good. How talk a little bit about how you got to Grand Valley. I know you went to Lasher High School over on the east side of the state. So talk a little bit about your recruitment and why you chose to attend Grand Valley State.
Going through the recruitment process, there were schools that came and went, but Grand Valley was one that stuck with me throughout the whole recruiting process. And Coach Kaler was here at the time. He's now at another school, but very faithful to me in the recruiting process, and I respected them, and it was a mutual understanding throughout the whole process.
Came in as a corner, originally kind of play that position. As you kind of moved through things and progressed, moved you to some safety, and now you're playing a nickel for us right now. And then also long snapping. Had the opportunity to be our long snapper on the road at Walsh when Jay Fleming had to take his LSAT exams and wasn't around for that game. So talk a little bit about transitioning through some different positions and some different coaches. You've had quite a few different positional coaches in your time at Grand Valley, and then your contributions on special teams, especially as a snapper.
Well, it's been a learning process the whole way through. Coming in as a freshman, as a corner position, a lot of emphasis is on the physical play. But when you move back to safety and then now at nickel, there's a lot of the whole defense that you have to learn and kind of grab the concept of that. And then special teams, I did it a little bit in high school with long snapping, but it's just another aspect to add to your repertoire, and if it helps out the team, that's all good with me.
Obviously, our season isn't over yet, but when things finish up here at Grand Valley State and you take a look back at your your experience within the football program. What do you think is the thing you're going to take away the most from it? What's the most positive thing that's come away from your experiences?
Just the guys throughout the whole process, the team, the coaches, the family of Grand Valley means a lot to me. Through high times, low times, guys have always been there to kind of pick you up, and you're there for the guys also. So it's just a great friendship and great bond from everybody.
And a lot of times when you're on a team and you're part of a team and you're playing, it can be easy. And I know at times there's been some frustrations at times because you haven't had maybe the same playing experiences that other people in your class have had or other people on the team. So talk about a little bit of the perseverance and, your grit to kind of stick with the process and what you see as has been the valuable outcome of all that.
Well, I think that the mark that you leave is really important, and just kind of looking back 5 years, 10 years from now, I want to say that I gave it my all and tell my kids and grandkids one day it's the same thing. If you go into something, you stick it out, and it might not be easy at times, but it's about the experiences that you gather from it and makes you a stronger man from it all.
All right, let's shift away from football, get in a little bit of the academic side. What is your major, and I guess what do you hope to do with that major and that degree when you're finishing up?
Yeah, my major is in elementary education, and I'll have a minor in Spanish, so teaching somewhere in a warmer climate than West Michigan. I've been in Michigan my whole life, and I didn't expect all the snow when I got here at the first place, but something with all that.
So you're heading south.
Yeah.
You're out of here. Okay.
I'm outta here.
Fair enough. Appreciate that. Who do you hang with the most on the team? Who do you have the best relationships with?
I got a couple guys. Sonny Haskins, my roommate right now, number 99. David Talley, Terrell Dorsey. Those are just a couple guys.
Good.
That I hang with.
Well, what have you, this is a unique schedule for us up to this point, and what have you noticed about you've been around the block now 5 years. What have you noticed about the 2016 Lakers that may have been different maybe from some other teams, and not in a negative way at those other teams? What have you noticed about this team?
The camaraderie's there for sure, and we stick with each other through highs and lows. I mean, a couple games back on the road against ODU, offense gives up the ball, defense goes out, gets a stop right away. So we just kind of stick with the process and take each rep as it is and try to go 1-0 each rep in each game.
Good. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and appreciate everything you've done. Obviously, I know a little bit more about your impact in the building than you may know on the stat sheet, and appreciate everything you've done. So let's finish it out.
Sounds good.
Nate, great having you. That's Nate Cole with us, player interview for you. It's brought to you by Country Dairy, the official milk of GVSU athletics. We're going to look around the GLIAC a bit when we come back. Also the region, some interesting notes to point out. That's straight ahead as the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell rolls on the Grand Valley Sports Network. We'll be right back.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Lakers at home this Saturday. It's homecoming. Grand Valley kicking things off against Truman State at 4 o'clock. Great to have you back with us inside the Main Street Pub. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones with head coach Matt Mitchell. Going to talk a little bit about the conference and the region here. This segment presented by Modern Office brings spaces to life. As the Lakers, when you look within their region right now, there are only two undefeated teams. Grand Valley's one of them. Midwestern State the other. More on them in a moment. But, around the GLIAC last week, no real big upsets, nothing of note. I mean, this week you've got Michigan Tech at Tiffin. That's maybe one of the other bigger matchups going on, of course, from the Grand Valley game, but not a whole lot notable.
Yeah, no, this you never know in the GLIAC, but it looks like in a slate of games, nothing too crazy. I would say the Michigan Tech at Tiffin, that's kind of a tough one, for me personally. For a strength of schedule standpoint, we don't play Tech, so it'd be nice for Tiffin to win.
Right.
But I do have a lot of friends up there and connections at Tech, so that'll be a really interesting game. And also, not that we look too far ahead, but Hillsdale's heading down to Findlay, and Hillsdale is our opponent next week. We're going to travel to Hillsdale. And, it'd be interesting to see kind of how that contest goes. Specifically, Findlay's been able to throw the ball around with Reese Gervais and been pretty explosive on offense, and kind of see how Hillsdale matches up against them, and then see how the defense for Findlay is doing against the Hillsdale offense. Hillsdale has a transfer quarterback, Chance Stewart from Western Michigan, that's putting up some decent numbers right now in the GLIAC. So that'll be a tape that will be very intriguing to watch and kind of see how that matchup will plays also.
Well, Grand Valley, of course, at 4 o'clock. That Tech at Tiffin game is at 1:30 there, also in the conference. Now, Midwestern State, a big win this past Saturday. They defeated Texas A&M Commerce, one of the other good teams within the region, and the Lone Star. 26-25. Got them by 1 point, but that's on the road, and they stay undefeated.
Yeah, it was a big win for Midwestern State. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Midwestern State was the #1 seed in our region last year. And so right now they've kind of, they've got a good grip on the Lone Star Conference, lead. So there's a couple games coming up for them. I think Angelo State. I watched Angelo State a little bit on tape when they played Northern Michigan. They've got a decent club. They beat Northern Michigan, at the Dome. So there's a couple trips coming up that could be there. But those have been the top 2 teams here in recent history. West Texas has fallen off the map a little bit in that conference. And so it's really been Commerce and Midwestern State, and that was a big game for them to get it. So we'll see how it goes. The Lone Star Conference used to have a playoff at the end. They used to have a championship game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's actually, it had hurt them with some of the playoffs. So they've canceled that. They're not doing that anymore. And so you're going to see a situation kind of like the GLIAC where there's going to be an outright conference champion. And then what's really going to be interesting, I think, as things start to unfold is there's going to be a bevy of 1-loss teams and 2-loss teams. And as you know, Steve, and a lot of fans know, you start getting into those things, it's really a lot of it's strength of schedule, and start to see how those things unfold. So, again, that's why scheduling is extremely important, and I'm very thankful for our administration. We always want to try to play 11 games here. Sometimes it's a challenge, but we want to try to play 11 games, and to get this game week 7 for us with Truman, I think, it's a pretty big deal for our program.
Yeah, it really is. When you look back over the big picture, to have lost an opponent in conference, Malone backs out, and you find not only a team to play, but a good interregional team. That really worked well.
Yeah, it was great. They went to work when that open date opened up, and the GLVC is an interesting conference just because of the number of teams, and so they're able to find that open date. And we signed a home and away contract with them, so we have them home here in 2016, and then we'll travel down to Missouri in 2017. But it's not that bad of a trip. I think I Google mapped it because the coaches are coming up from there, and it's only 8.5 hours, maybe 8 hours. So that's not too bad. Michigan Tech heading down to Tiffin, I checked that out. That's 10.5 hours. So you think out of conference Missouri, long road trip.
Right.
Tech has got. Well, I happened to Google too. Tech had to go to ODU too, and that's 11.5 hours down to Columbus, Ohio. So Michigan Tech's taking an 11.5 and a 10.5 hour trip down to Ohio, so they're used to it up there. But that's kind of the crazy thing I think people don't understand about our conference. We have 2 teams up in the Upper Peninsula, and those drives are further than even some drives within our region. Having to play some regional opponents.
Ooh, that's right. Watch them go to Lake Erie at some point too, right?
Yeah, no
that'd
doubt.
be even farther. All right, one more segment straight ahead. We're going to ask Coach the Coors Light ice cold question when we come back. Final segment of the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Now we're back one final time. As this segment, we want to thank one of our fine sponsors, Allendale True Value. Behind every project is a true value. Couple of minutes left. Coach, real quick, as we put you on the Coors Light Ice Cold question here, presented by Alliance Beverage. Offense, defense, special teams. Give me a name, not necessarily of a player, but what are you pleased with? What do you want to see improved? And a pleasant surprise.
Offensively, I've been surprised with the way that we've been able to handle a lot of in-game situations. There's been a variety of in-game situations. I think that we've handled those very well. We've had some 2-minute drills. We've had some different things. We've changed up. We've made some good adjustments. The Ferris game, we made a great adjustment on some things that helped us on that scoring drive. From an offensive perspective, to get better at our passing game, I think we have veterans at the wide receivers and quarterbacks. I have higher expectations. We need to improve on that point. Defensively, I just have been impressed with the veracity at which we've played. It's been fast, it's been physical, it's been violent. We've gotten after people at all three levels. The thing that I wish we could have, probably get a little bit better of, we're still missing some executions and some things get a little bit better that way. From the special teams, our specialists have been really good. Special teams are made up of specialists, so long snapper, kicker, punter. Dan Madden as a punter had one bad shank, but other than that, been pretty good. Joel Skipper's done a great job as senior. Jay Fleming as our long snapper. We've gotten better at the return game. Get our punt return team going. Try to get a punt blocked. We haven't blocked a punt yet, or get a big punt return. Kind of an explosive, crowd-igniting play, on one of our return games. Something that's really gets people into it and emotional. I think that's the thing I'm looking for on that end of the deal.
Good stuff. That'll wrap things up for tonight. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate that. Remember, 4 o'clock kickoff time on Saturday for Truman State for homecoming. My thanks to assistant coach Mike Hatcher, player Nate Cole, and head coach Matt Mitchell. I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. Thanks for listening tonight to the GVSU Football Weekly Report on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Go Lakers!